Reinvent yourself. Welcome to the Disrupt Everything podcast series with Isra Garcia. The opportunity to live in a permanent state of reinvention and change as change happens. A space for human potential, action, holistic high performance, ultra productivity, experimental lifestyle, unstoppable attitude, disruptive mindset, coaching and self-discipline as a lifestyle, modern stoicism, impact marketing, connected leadership, and whatever comes next.
I am really interested in forging a modern pathway that can act as an antidote to living in our hyper-speed world, to bridge the tools of our past with our rapidly advancing future. This is a quote found on my research of this new guest, that we were going to do this interview online, and we are here in Psychedelic Science 2023 in Denver, Colorado. Krishna, Trevor, East Forest,
thank you.
I saw him, and I think I crashed the interview. But I was trying not to, but I think I crashed the interview, so I'm also apologize for that. Which is the next guest for Disrupt Everything podcast series. East Forest, thank you for being here. Thank you for the chance to be in this interview.
Yeah, I didn't expect that we would cross paths on this planet in person.
I'm so happy, and also you playing in UK, right?
Yeah, in August, Ireland, and London, and Poland.
And Poland is the
Dreamers Land
Festival. Let me tell you a bit about East Forest. He's a disruptor and pioneer at experimenting with music and the combination of meditation, technology, and the psychotropic substances as a pathway for spiritual growth. Trevor Oswalt, aka East Forest, creates electro-acoustic dreamscapes influenced by classical, electronic, and avant-pop backgrounds. East Forest is offered as a gesture of cooperation and the spirit of the gift. And I also take a quote that says, "There is a glue that unifies everything I do. My podcast, talks, retreats, writing, events, and the music I make are all about inviting introspection. It's a form of trusting an individual's inherent wisdom as they dive into their inner world and learn to make their own decisions." And for myself, this project, East Forest, has allowed me to stay sane, and I want to share experiences, tools, and sounds that I have learned for other people to get closer to their own essence. So, in Disrupt Everything podcast series, a podcast where we dissect, deconstruct, and talk with global and worldwide disruptors, we have today East Forest. Your last works is in a soundtrack for psychedelic practitioners, Still Possible, Headwaters, and recently Burren with Peter Broderick.
Peter Broderick. Yeah, the one and only.
First question is, what these 4 albums have in common and don't have in common?
Well, I just like making music, and I like making music that takes people inside. But Burren is album, my last album. That was a collaborative album with Peter, and so that was fun to make music with someone else. And we were improvising out in Ireland, in this place called the Burren, and we microdosed mushrooms, and all this music came out in 1 week, like 12 songs in 1 week. And my current record is called Music for the Deck of the Titanic, and that's my new studio record that's coming out right now. Comes out on August 18th, the full album. And I think I'm just like a lot of artists, we're wrestling, like we all are actually, all people wrestling with this collapse and this change that's happening, and our feelings of grief, and mixed with maybe sometimes hope or excitement and despair and confusion, anxiety. And so I think I'm just processing that through making music.
If you were about to put your life in a timeline, what would be your top milestones in the
backwards or forwards? Looking back.
Looking back.
Yeah. Well, I would say in 2008, when I took mushrooms and journeyed to my first album, not knowing it was going to be my first album, and it really changed my life. It started this whole project. And it was so beautiful. I didn't intend for that to happen. And then I would say doing the album with Ram Dass was a very powerful, changing moment for me. And then releasing my album that same year called Music for Mushrooms. It's a 5-hour album for mushrooms. And
God bless this album, man.
Thank you. But that was a moment of kind of like coming out of the closet. Before that, I released music for that, but I didn't really say what it was for. And since then, I've been much more of a public advocate for this kind of work. And here we are today.
What brought you here?
To perform. Playing on Wednesday night at the event.
I know. What?
I was supposed to play tonight, but Maps canceled all the music that they were going to do tonight.
It's a shame, because I didn't know you were playing.
Their fault, man. Yeah, that's actually why I came. They asked me to come play.
How psychedelics has impacted your life, and what changes have you experienced, and how this has been translated into the art and the work you do?
I mean, fundamentally, I think psychedelics helped show me that there was more, much more, and I needed a very strong medicine to break through my shell in my mind, and it just showed me possibility. And so I think I since then have been wanting to echo that possibility or help myself feel that again, like over and over and over again.
Has something to do with the track Possible and the album Still Possible?
I mean, it's just another example of that same
it came to my mind.
Over and over and over again. Yeah, different songs, different shapes, different instruments, different styles. But
how did you break this shell and then in the mind? What was there?
What was the shell?
Yes.
Like my father was very scientific and rational, reductionist, materialist, atheist. And so I think when I grew up, I was sort of taught that, by example at least, they let me do whatever I wanted or believe whatever I wanted, but it's sort of, your father is your example and your mother, and that the world was random. And that was terrifying to me, or sad. And I was very depressed, and it just meant that even the love between my family was random or meaningless. And I didn't like that. And I didn't have anything else to show me anything. I didn't have anything, man. And I didn't go into psychedelics looking for that, but I discovered that. I discovered a sense of solace and a sense of, there's more.
Has this changed or reshaped something with your family?
I think it's changed me so that I just accept and love my parents as they are. I don't try to change them anymore. So it changed me.
It's so resonant.
They haven't changed, but I mean, it's like I just love them more.
For you, that you have been doing the work with medicine, but also with music, which is, another kind of psychedelic. So, and as I perceived entering in this altered states of consciousness through psychedelics, through making your own music, through listening your music, what the stages or phases have you identified in these processes or states of consciousness of yourself?
In making music?
In making music.
Well, I think I maybe understand what you're asking, but it's been a recognition about how the creative process for me is a necessary process for me to feel okay, like more than okay. Like if I'm not creative, things start to go pretty bad. So then I start to recognize that there's something important about creation for all of us, probably, but for me, definitely. Like that exercise of like making something out of nothing, or is a really integral part of feeling sane. So in that way, it becomes a practice,
And how do you practice this process of creation, of making?
But I'm always by making this my job, and so I always have to rehearse. Like this morning, I have a show in LA, so I had this rehearse in the hotel room, and I do this all the time because I have to. And because I have to, I'm doing it, and then I feel better.
And when you practice, so in Zen tradition, it says that the action is the realization itself. So
yeah,
in the way you do that,
that's all it is just a practice. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are your top skills to navigate this world, and how have you developed them?
Mostly by making mistakes and learning from my mistakes, and having a good partner who keeps me honest and to help up-level me as a person.
And which skills will you highlight from that you have that thing is valuable to you?
Learning to tell the truth more, and
to oneself and to others, right?
all of it. Yeah, that's probably the biggest, and just trying to lighten up too. Like I think that's a strong medicine for me, is to not take everything so seriously and not try to control so much. Try to let go more and trust into divinity in the process.
When you start working, or when you started this path of your inner self, or finding something, or getting in touch with whatever it is we are, what things prove you useful, or prove you useful in this path, or to discover who you were, or walking through it?
Like what techniques, or
What techniques, what things, what techniques?
Again, it's for me, my main practice is creativity in music. So I mean, that's kind of my main thing. Other than that, it's just like getting out into nature and not trying to keep your life a little more balanced and not just be working all the time, which I tend to do. But it's just staying creative.
What have you learned? What have you learned from creating soundscapes for yourself and for thousands of people? Because I think it's not only the music; it's how this music surrounds you. At least I listen to your music quite a lot, and I was curious about this question.
I mean, I think it's in the details. I'm very interested in like how the little things add up to make the whole, and those little things matter a lot. And so I can be very, very particular about all of it. Every little frequency and the quality of the sound and how it gets put together is there's a very delicate balance.
Does this change in something when you are recording, or when you are doing online, and when you are doing?
Yeah. I mean, they're different, but it's the same attitude that I'm always paying a lot of attention to the details.
How do you get into flow states?
Improvisation. Yeah. Like, so making music without a plan.
And when you do this, because what I discovered is the biggest anti-flow that we have is time restrictions. So how is your relationship with time, and how is this linked with the flow states, time, the restrictions?
I struggle with it like a lot of us. I think I'm working on trying to do less, but it's I don't have a good answer for that one. I think I'm someone who attempts to do too much. Like, I try to maximize things a lot. So I'm always maximizing. It'd be good medicine maybe for me to sometimes be like, I will not maximize this particular thing.
Do you have any particular set of consciousness or meditation practices, or this practice that helps you to be still?
I like saunas, and I like being still and breathing exercises. But it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but it's actually playing music and making music, listening to music is my main practice.
Meditation for chaotic times. That's, what's the story behind of this? I find it very powerful, and also this is one of the This is one of the tracks I most share with almost
cool.
like clients, like audience, both with
Cool.
music and without. There's both brilliant.
Oh, thanks. It was right when COVID lockdown started, like a week after, and I think we were all feeling pretty crazy. And I remember sitting in my studio and just feeling it, and I just was like, grabbed the mic, found that music, put it on, recorded it, sent it to my mastering engineer, who usually that takes months, and I said, hey, I just want to get this out and he's like, got it done in a couple days, and I released it on Spotify within 2 or 3 weeks, and that was it. I just did it as fast as I could.
Wow. And then how did you feel at the time you were recording that? Can you recall?
Yeah, I felt, I do remember. I felt like honest and emotional. When I record meditations, I listen to the music in real time, and I'm just like reacting to the music and making it up, so to speak, improvising. And I'm just trying to I want to be honest, and I want to feel like I'm in touch with an authentic emotional place.
How does your 60-90 minutes of your morning looks like?
It's not that fancy. I like having coffee.
Not expecting a fancy answer.
Yeah, coffee. I don't eat in the morning. I have coffee, and then I usually take care of some business, because I like to do my creative work in the late morning, and so I'm kind of like just getting up and take care of things. Sometimes I'll exercise, or I make coffee for my partner every day, and then that's pretty much it.
How do you, before or after playing music, recording, do you have any kind of specified ritual or way to get yourself into it, or in
No.
preparation or integration?
No, I try to not think about it. I try to make it very casual. I don't want it to be over ritualized, because then it's too much thinking. So I try to make it very, very casual. So it's the total opposite. It's like no big deal, just sort of do it.
When you work with substances, with psychedelics, I don't know if it's mushrooms, psilocybin, what's the process? Is there any process you follow, or because also I've seen spaces, ceremonies. How do you approach this work?
Well, for myself, I always make it ritual. It's a ceremony for myself. So I usually am always indoors at home, and I just get my space prepared. I prepare the whole day and what I don't eat or so forth. And I prepare some kind of music and an altar, and I'm usually with my partner or someone. And so it's a very intentional space.
You play, or you just...
For myself?
Yeah, or
I usually am listening to something I'm working on, or I'm testing it.
So it's a good also ground for test, right?
Yeah, you got to test it. You got to test it. You have to.
What's been your toughest decision, and why?
I'll just say more like the toughest decisions right now is about what not to do, and trying to balance this kind of work inside a world that is, I always want to make sure that whatever I'm doing, I hope it's helping, or it's not adding to a problem. And so it's sometimes hard to know in advance, like, is this the right thing to be a part of or not? And those can be difficult decisions.
And how do you make that? So how do you make that decisions?
There's no one way. I think it's one part intuitive, and the other part's more discursive, like you're just using your mind. And I have a team. We talk things over. And my partner Radha, she's a close ally as far as making decisions. I try to balance it more now with like my body and things like that, as opposed to just like business, or that's like, so it's one thing, like, yeah, that's a good event, but the other part of it is, can you do it, or will you is that crazy?
And how do you, when these situations and also this fast-paced world we live, it creates stress, anxiety. How do you deal with these uncomfortable situations when you feel sometimes depressed, or sometimes you feel like so much things going on?
Sometimes I don't do very well. I mean, sometimes I lose my sense of center all the time, and I try not to attach to it too much and realize that, look, it will probably pass by the next day, but it can be a really shitty place to be. Going on walks helps, and getting back, if I can do something creative, sometimes it's hard, but if I can, that often helps. But sometimes a lot of it has to do with just being tired or burnt out, and there's not much you can do until you rest. And I have to just remember that and be like, I know everything seems bad right now, but I have to try to not attach to those feelings too much.
Yeah, impermanence, right? Everything goes, but sometimes it's hard to understand when you are in the middle of what is happening.
Yeah.
I have a quote that here says, I want to share the experiences, tools, songs that I have learned for other people to get closer to their own essence. Can you name one experience, one song, and one tool also that have helped you to get closer to your own essence, and how?
Well, I think about a song I have called Grandmother's Sphere, where it was essentially an experience of me working with ayahuasca for the first time, and I had my experience, and then I made notes to myself on an audio recorder, and then that gets turned into a song, and then those notes maybe help other people in other ways. And so it's sort of taking my own experiences and kind of amplifying them or translating them into other things,
I have this song in a ceremony playlist, and when people has listened to it, and they reacted in very different ways. And me myself, like, did you choose the words because it's Ramdas, right, talking?
Which song?
Grandmother's Sphere?
That's me. Yeah, it's before I did the Ramdas album. It's just me talking.
Yeah, but it looks to me, I always believed that was Ramdas.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
Maybe we're talking about a different song, but I mean,
is this one? No,
Grandmother's Sphere.
Yeah, like it's
me.
Fire.
Yeah, that's from 2012. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's my first ayahuasca experience, and I was just taking notes to myself afterwards.
Wow, thank you but you discovered something in me I didn't know. Like I was believing like it's Ramdas, when you say like a lifetime of judgments. And
it means about myself. A lifetime of judgments. Yeah,
it resonated a lot.
Yeah.
On the frontier of psychedelics in 2023, 2024, what's your take?
Ambivalence a bit. I feel some confusion, some excitement, some a little bit trepidation. This is a lot of people here. Yeah, I've never seen this many people all interested in psychedelic stuff in one place. So I'm not quite sure what that means.
I was going to ask you that.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I see a lot of people here I know, but then there's obviously so many people I don't, and I'm just kind of like, who are all these people? Like, because for so long it was such a small thing. for 15 years.
I have a question. Another so don't you feel or because don't you feel that this is also getting the hype that about the self-help industry, which is I give you the tool, and when you need the tool you have to come back again. How do you see the offering that or the shape that is taking
Here?
here?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many different people here. It's hard to say. Everything from like companies to therapists. So it's hard to put it all into one thing. But I think at the end of the day, a psychedelic experience is something that a person has. And so it's a very personal experience. I'm guessing a lot of people here have had an experience that inspired them in some way, and that's why they're here. And so there is a common ground, but maybe some people get a little lost on what that is. But I think there is. I think.
What's been your most profound healing experience with psychedelics?
Well, that first one I probably mentioned back in 2008, where I with mushrooms, and that music of mine was, I just felt it was very transformative, and it sort of birthed.
If you were
the whole
about,
thing.
if you were about to sum up all the takeaways that you've given, from different psychedelic ceremonies, even each of one is different. Do you see a common underlying reason or a common threat to it?
Yeah, I mean, they sound kind of like cliches, but I have a song called "You Can't Fall Out of Love," and that's sort of one way of summing it up, is that we can't fall outside of the thing called love. It's sort of like you can't ever be outside of the mother, in a way. You know what I mean? You're always in love.
And after also guiding ceremonies, musical ceremonies for other people, which people go into a journey. What this has taught you?
That we're not really in control, and that you have, it's a level of trust and care, and that it's important to go slow and care for people.
Has this developed a sense of caring or
A sense of reverence and a sense of some caution, and also, maybe slowing things down a bit.
what are the biggest takeaways for you, or the lessons from recording music for mushrooms, a soundtrack for the psychedelic practitioner?
To trust, and to trust myself and trust intuitions. I think I was afraid to put out something like that, but once I did, it's only been received positively. And so it's to trust that to take those kind of risks where you have ideas like that, to just, to follow it.
What recommendations or best practices from your own experience can you share with people about how to use or how you best practices about psilocybin use?
Those are big questions. Well, there's
I would
lots.
say for practitioners and users, or maybe are the same.
I would just say to go slowly, not to rush things, and to go progressively in steps. There's no need to I think we have to do things big and fast, or bigger is better, and I would say bigger is not always better. And that's a sort of a very American Western idea that more is more, and I don't think that's true. So I'll just leave it at that. It's whatever feels right for you intuitively, listen to that. Just because someone's a heroic dose is that's a silly term. So.
And so I'm interested on also you said that you were testing music, right? So do you is random, is it spontaneously, or you pick the tracks that you play into the ceremony?
If I'm working on a record, and if it's for guiding that, then I feel like I need to understand it from those other perspectives to make changes to it. And yeah.
And I see does make a difference, right, between being on psychedelics and not being there.
Yeah, it's a different perspective. Yeah, for sure. So you're always searching for different ways to listen. Even just having someone in the room and you're just listening in a sober mindset, just having a person say, I hear it differently. So that's hearing it. Or if I hear it or if you perform it, that's hearing it differently. So it's just the process of creation.
Is any album that any album that you really struggle with before releasing?
Sure, I mean many of them.
Which one is the one you said, wow, this was
hard to get out?
Hard to get out.
We did an album of reworks of remixes for the Ramdas album. That was hard because you're dealing with all these different artists and all their teams, and getting that across the finish line was a lot of work. A lot of work.
I wanna. So Ramdas is a prominent figure in your life. So, what's your relationship with him? How did you meet them? What did you learn from him? Well,
I learned many things, but I mean, I went there to record with him for a week, and then we went back several times, a couple years before his death. I think I just learned about many things, but I remember learning particularly about being loving awareness with people and how you can bring that at any moment to anywhere, and how powerful that is.
How did you learn that, and how do you?
I just learned it by him giving it to me, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. And I was like, oh, that's not that complicated, and that's a really important thing to give people.
So it's like full attention, no?
Yeah, it's not weird. It's just like you're just fully listening. You're present.
And this changed completely. We're not ready to somebody staring at us being in this moment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure.
Because we are not ready for that.
He didn't know me, and he just immediately kind of gave me all of himself, and I thought that was really beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What's your struggles right now?
I think burnout.
So much to.
Yeah, like to overwhelm. Yeah.
And what are your blessings now?
My partner, Radha, and having people that listen to my work. I'm very grateful for that.
What's the most beautiful compliment you ever heard from your work?
Honestly, I think it's just that the fact that they trust it and then go into a journey like that, I know that takes a level of trust. They give themselves over to not just the music, but that process. And then for the music to hold them and help them through that, I find very beautiful that they sort of take that level of trust.
I can be one of these persons because the experience I've had with, I think I told you when we first met, the experience I had with your music and the experience I seen from outside in other people and how they react, even it got me emotional, it goes bumping just to remember how people reacted to that music, which is beautiful, by the way. I'm saying this also for honoring and respecting the work you do, which I think is marvelous. People can maybe listen to this and say it's too much flattery. I don't know. It's just some naming things by what it is.
Well, I've been on the other side, experiencing the music, and when I'm on the medicine, I don't know how it was made. So then I'm just soul experiencing it, and I have the same experience. So I mean, I know it's very deep. I can't explain it.
Can you name at least one thing that you have learned from the people that has influenced you the most?
I'm going to go back to Ram Dass, and it was just giving me a very clear example of what loving awareness is and how simple that is. Like, it isn't about anything it's almost not something you learn. It's more like taking things off. And that was really profound.
What lesson would you like to master and why?
Patience, because when I'm impatient, that's most of my misery.
The podcast interview that you listen the most?
That I listen to the most, like a favorite of my own show?
Not from your own show.
Oh gosh. Well, I want to say from my own show, I remember talking to Bayo Akomolafe, and I just listened to it again the other day, and it was one that really inspires me. He's poetic, and so it makes me always like feel things.
And what's the name of the interview?
Bayo Akomolafe on my podcast, which is called
we'll
10 Laws.
We'll check it out, and we'll share the podcast and also this interview in the podcast show notes.
Sure, yeah.
What are the 3 things that you told yourself that keep you going during your darkest hours?
Everything. This is temporary, and that feeling like I can give it over to Maharaji or something larger than myself.
What's the best advice you have been given?
That, you think you're in a place and whatever you're dealing with is sort of, this is what's happening, and it's just the idea that a lot can happen in a couple years, let alone less time, and so things change. There's not to be too concerned. Like, things tend to work out.
And the worst advice you've been given?
To invest in an IRA or stocks or thing, and it's like all this boring financial advice. Or buy Bitcoin.
In the right time or in the not?
No, of course not. Yeah.
So last 3 questions I have is, who would be the one you would love to train or practice with, alive or death?
Oh, I'd love to work with someone like Bjork or Jonsi of Sigur Rós.
What advice would you give to smart-driven college students about to enter the real world, and what advice they should ignore?
That same advice about, like, a lot can happen in a few years, so it's like, don't worry too much about, like, a lot. Your whole life can flip over multiple times in a good way, and so it's like, it'll work out. Just follow what you're interested in, and follow that as your, like, North Star.
And the one they should ignore?
Don't buy Bitcoin. Yeah.
What would be the question what would be the question that you will ask to my audience for this podcast?
Like, what is something you could do less of?
And the last message before ending up this podcast?
We are all loving awareness.
Where people can find more about you on the internet?
eastforest.org.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And is there anything else you want to add?
No, thank you so much, my friend. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is East Forest, and I'm ending this podcast with another quote from him. It says, "The solutions we are pining for will always emerge from the inside out. That is where all the real change originates. I do believe we can ignite a revolution in our hearts." Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
We managed somehow in the time, and thank you, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Disrupt Everything podcast series with Isra Garcia. You can listen to the podcast on any podcast platform or on isragarcia.s/podcast, where you'll find interviews with Seth Godin, Robin Sharma, Wim Hof, Kevin Kelly, Stephen Kotler, Joseph Ahram, Great Modern Stoics, Zen Masters, Shaolin Masters, Hollywood actors, New World sages, and many other disruptors, plus solo episodes with Isra. and the journey continues.